So over the past few months we have now had weekly tournaments from the Pokemon TCG Pocket, and as you can see from just this chart, this was week 2. We are seeing more and more Mewtwo and Pikachu. Now, the big question everybody's got is, can they be beaten? And most definitely the answer is yes. A lot of RNG, sometimes just not having the correct deck that comes out. It is all based on turns and just how you utilize your deck properly. And then sometimes you just don't get the cards. It can happen to anybody. And the whole point of building a deck is to make it almost as suitable as possible to go against any sort of scenario that happens. Now, obviously with the Pikachu and Mewtwo, the biggest thing for them is they are heavy hitters very early on, and there is some great supporting Pokemon that can help. Obviously with Pikachu, the big thing is the fact you have a full bench. Then you're obviously hitting, I think, is it 110 or 120 every single time, whereas Mewtwo have the Guadavir as the bonus picks, so they give you the extra energies every single turn if you can get one, or if you can get two. Two's just an absolute game changer, but at least one is fantastic. But over the past week or so, we have seen a few decks come into play. The big one, which is going to be third on this list, is going to be Charizard. Now, this is obviously from the week 2 reports. As you do go in and go through a little bit, you kind of see the same sort of outlook, kind of a lot of Pikachu, a lot of Mewtwo. Pikachu definitely seemed the most prominent at the moment, and as we do go into getting that mini set, we start getting into the second generation of kind of decks. That's going to be the interesting part, because as we saw, Mewtwo took over Pikachu in this kind of like week 4, and as we do go forward, he seems to be the best deck that is the most sustainable, the most reliable on every single battle. Now, obviously, in some scenarios we saw this week, Charizard actually took that number 1 spot. I'm going to go through a few of the decks that you could kind of battle Pikachu and Mewtwo with. Now, obviously, in this is Pokemon Meta. This is kind of going through a few of the decks, and as you can see, we've got a lot of the first places that have happened over the many amount of tournaments that we've had. And as you can see, we've got a first place here, date obviously December the 1st. And obviously Charizard is the main factor. This is going to be kind of comprised of Charizard, Arcanine, and Moltres. Now, obviously, when it comes to this deck, you're obviously looking at Moltres for that Inferno Dance. You're looking at Charizard for the Crimson Storm. Does discard 2 energies, so you've kind of got to use it in the right zone. But then also you have the Inferno Onrush, which is fantastic for Arcanine. The biggest thing that you've got to watch with all 3 of these cards specifically is you can only lose one of them. As soon as you lose that second one, it is lights out. They take 2 points per turn, so that is kind of the annoying factor to them. And it's why when you look at the Mewtwo deck, it is pretty important to have. So if we go back into the top decks and look at a Mewtwo deck, for instance, we should see this as being the pretty standard deck. So you've obviously got the 2 Mewtwo EXs. Everybody's looking for that Psy Drive. Then obviously with this card, you've got the Psy Shadow. So every turn from the bench as well, you can take an energy from your energy zone and add it onto your active spot. This is then meaning, say if you've got 1 clear, you're getting 2 energies every single go, and if you do manage to get to the second one put in place, you do get 3 energies per go. Meaning, pretty much once you get to that second energy on Mewtwo, it is lights over every single turn, because you are hitting 150 every single time. Now, there is only a fair few Pokemon that this wouldn't take out in one, so that is something to always consider. But adding this Mewtwo, to be honest, I kind of added a Jinx in instead of Mewtwo here, but this is almost used as a buffer because it's not an EX, and I know technically if you lose the EX anyway, you would lose a second point, so it kind of doesn't matter what Pokemon this is, as long as it's a high HP. That's going to be the big thing. 120 is enough to then get a Mewtwo stored in the back ready, then getting obviously this setup as well. Once you've done that, you're pretty much lights out. You can get everything going, and this one's almost used as a sacrifice, whereas some people do run, I wonder if it's going to be in the second slot, there might be only a couple of them that do utilize the Jinx as well. But with the Jinx, it is really good to go against a Moltres or a Misty deck, because basically with that, if we can find one, you can clearly see it's kind of used sporadically more so than anything, is basically the attack is up by, I wonder if I can I just find it on here? top cards, let's have a look here, see if we can find it. So if you've got a Jinx, for instance here, this attack does 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So obviously with the 30, then add in 20 on a time. So if you've got, for instance, a Charizard with a 4, you've managed to come in on a hit, you'll be able to do 30 plus then an extra 4. So meaning you're getting an extra 80 on top of your 30, doing a 120 damage, which if Charizard is slightly hit, because if say you've managed to get one hit off with a Mewtwo, that will do 150, that will pretty much collapse the Charizard. So that is kind of the extra battle there that you could throw in with a bit of Jinx. And as you can see, we've kind of got the top cards here, and a lot of them are going to be from the Pikachu, the Mewtwo, and the Charizard decks. Obviously with Pikachu, the attack does 30 more damage for each bench Pokemon, so it's a 90 attack each time, which obviously is going to be a very big factor of only needing 2 energies a time. Zapdos is always great if you can get the RNG well, because obviously it's the 3 energies, you can do 50 if you get a heads on the 4 flips, so if you manage to get all 4, you're doing a 200 damage. I don't think there's a single Pokemon out there at the moment that could tank 4 heads in that one, but it's going to be a very hard one to get. It's very RNG. There is one Pokemon that is coming about, and if Charizard is kind of the new method to take out a Mewtwo, this is going to be fantastic with a brand new Greninja that we've got. Because the ability Water Shuriken, once during your opponent may do 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's going to be pretty fantastic because you can do it while sleeping as well. So no matter the paralyzed, the ability still works. Obviously then 2 energies for the 60, which is going to be fantastic, of an 80 every time. Plus then if Charizard's in play, obviously being weak to water is going to be another great one because it's an added bonus of a 20, meaning you're hitting 100 every single time. Now obviously if you get the Crimson Storm, unfortunately not a lot you can do, but if you can bring it in at a certain point, you've got pretty much 2 turns to get him out, and that's going to be fantastic for any fire deck that the water deck is becoming more prevalent. Obviously then you've got the Articuno, you've got Starmie, and then throwing in a Misty is always going to be fantastic as well. Obviously takes any energy of the zones and then putting it on any of your Pokemon. Some people have got really good RNG on that, and sometimes from what I've seen in the past kind of week, it has been a little bit trash for some people. So it's just completely down to the luck. But the big question is, can Mewtwo be beaten? That's kind of what we're looking at. And same with a Pikachu as well. That deck is just a fantastic one in itself. You got Zebra Striker that can hit the opponent's benched Pokemon, which is very overlooked. We obviously then have the paralyzed Pokemon. Again, another very annoying one. And then obviously the very nice Zapdos EX and Pikachu EX. They're very, very hard to beat because Pikachu especially is bulked out very quickly. If you can get that bench in very much straight away, you've got 120 HP to kind of go against, and that's where the Arcanine does come in, because very much like the Pikachu, it could withstand at least 1 attack being at 150, and then also if you do manage to get it out there with the Moltres, it's got a 120 hit, meaning it takes Pikachu out in 1. So that is always something to consider. Throwing in the potions there as well, it's a great counter to Pikachu especially. The Mewtwo is a little bit harder because if the deck is set up correctly, it's very hard to get out of there unless you've got the deck absolutely set up perfectly. It will one-shot the Arcanine, it just won't one-shot the Charizard. That's kind of the big factor with Charizard. If you can get him going in the back, lead with Arcanine or lead with Moltres, go into Arcanine to try and do the damage. If then Mewtwo's set up, hopefully you've got your Charizard set up as well, meaning you could take out the Mewtwo in 1. The only problem is if they get to 2 Guadevirs and then have a second Mewtwo on the bench, it's going to be virtually impossible to be able to beat that. You're going to have to get it with at least only 1, and preferably with no energy stored on it for the second one. So it is very, very difficult to get out of there. But it is possible, and as we've seen in decks, it has managed to win first place. And sometimes, like we've seen, the Wigglytuff deck, still fantastic. It still works really well. Obviously, that's going to be mixed with potentially Hypno, potentially Executor. It works in very kind of good ways if you get the RNG. If you can asleep every single time, there's very little that you can do. There's no potion to wake somebody up and then go for the attack. it is just very much an RNG based kind of deck. So Mewtwo in itself is going to be able to be beaten with a Charizard, and obviously you will need the X's for it. When it comes to what you want to put in there, 2 Moltres is very important, 2 Charmanders, 2 Charmeleons, 2 Charizards, and then I have seen 2 Arcanines and 1 Growlithe, because if you have got the Pokeball in your trainer cards, then obviously that's going to put 1 basic Pokemon in there. Obviously on the very first kind of turn, you should get 1 guaranteed, so that kind of then puts in the place of Charmander twice, Moltres and Growlithe, giving you a very good chance of you being able to pull it at the very minimum. So overall, a nice kind of update for the meta. It will be very interesting, and we will cover all of the extra decks that do come out in the near future of the second set, of the mini set, and then any promo cards that do kind of surface, because the Greninja kind of come out of nowhere, and it will be very interesting to see where this meta does shift. Let me know if you've had any fun with other decks, and I'll catch you all for the next one. Peace.